Welcome to Springfield Cemetery. My name is John Howell. I was born in England in 1823, and I trained as a carpenter. However, carpentry wasn't my main passion. I wanted to be in the military. So in 1846, I enlisted. I was in the 4th Dragoons of the 11th Hussars. You may know them better as the Light Brigade, as in half a league, half a league, half a league onward into the Valley of Death rode the 600. My service in the cavalry was relatively uneventful until 1853, when England went to war with Russia over a land dispute in Crimea, which my understanding is hasn't been fully resolved yet. So we were deployed there, and then in 1854 we were laying siege to the city of Sevastopol, and on October 25th of 1854 was the Battle of Balaclava. And during that battle, there was some sort of communication mix-up. We're not entirely sure what, but my brigade was given orders to basically give a frontal assault of the heavily defended Russian artillery positions. We were a light cavalry, which meant that we carried things like lances and sabers, and we were generally very mobile. We could skirmish quickly. We could harass retreating infantry soldiers, things like that. We were not intended for full frontal assaults against heavily fortified positions, but that's what we were ordered to do, and that's exactly what we did. And as Alfred Lord Tennyson later immortalized it in his poem, we charged directly into the Russian defenses. And as I later told a Springfield Republican reporter about my entirely true story, we all knew there were masked batteries there, of course, but there were hundreds more than we suspected. No, it was not half a league that we rode. It was about 3/4 of a mile and back again, but there were only 150 of us when we got back. Horses and men were torn to pieces by the grape and canister and piled up in great bloody heaps. But most of our boys who came out were safe and sound. I hadn't a scratch on me. When a man did get hit, you see, it was all up with him. There they were all the way, horses and men piled up like a lot of stones. They had us completely flanked with guns in the brush on both sides all the way. And they raked us in front too. We were just as helpless as a row of chickens on a fence rail. But I made it through without a scratch, and without any record of my service in that brigade. But that's okay. So then, about a little over a week later, I was in yet another battle, the Battle of Inkerman, and I was in several more battles over the course of the Crimean War. And eventually, England won, and we were sent back to England in 1857. But rather than resuming the carpenter's trade in London, I decided to head to America. So I came to America and I settled in Worcester. And I picked up the carpentry business there for a few years, but then my new country and my new president, Abraham Lincoln, needed my services again. And I was happy, just as I charged down the mouths of the Russian cannons, I figured a few Confederates down south couldn't be that much trouble. I'll show them what a real war looks like. And so I enlisted. I was in the 6th Massachusetts, which was out of Worcester. And we were among the first to be sent down to the south. And along the way, we encountered some trouble in Baltimore. There were a large number of Confederate sympathizers in Baltimore, and they attempted to stop us from advancing further south. So there were riots, there were mostly civilians involved, but there were people killed on both sides, including several from the 6th Massachusetts. And we were the first Union regiment to receive fatalities from enemy fire during the Civil War. I, of course, was not wounded. And after 3 months of my enlistment, because it was a 90-day enlistment, so after 3 months, I was discharged and went back to Worcester, but not for long. So I was discharged in July, and then by October I was re-enlisting, and this time in the 25th Massachusetts, which you can look that one up. I was in the 25th Massachusetts. And I fought in 30 battles during the Civil War total. I was at Roanoke, I was at Kingston, I was even at Cold Harbor. And let me tell you, as someone who was in the Light Brigade, Cold Harbor felt like that all over again, with a charge up enemy lines, a fruitless effort to try to take their position. Overall, during the Civil War, I was shot a number of times. I had 3 bullets that are still in my right ankle. My back of my neck was grazed by an artillery shell. But overall, I made it through, not unscathed, but good enough. So I came back to Worcester, but then after a little while decided to come to Springfield. My wife Jane and I, we settled in what was at the time the outskirts of the city. We were at the corner of Carew and St. James. We had a little home there. And anyone who stopped by, any visitors, I was happy to regale them with tales of the Crimean War and the Civil War. Some of the people who stopped by, Bishop O'Reilly, I wasn't Catholic, but Bishop O'Reilly and I went way back to our younger days in Worcester, so he would stop by and chat. Libby Custer, General Custer's as in The Last Stand, his widow, she would stop by and visit. So we had a wonderful retirement in Springfield, and then I died on December 20th, 1898, and my wife Jane died just 4 days later. But a little bit before my death, I did try to get into the action one more time, because America was again at war in 1898, this time with Spain. And so a few months before my death, I offered my services to the recruiting officer, who very respectfully declined my offer. I was 74 years young, but he said that I had been sufficiently perforated for one lifetime on account of my Civil War wounds. And it was probably for the best in the end. But it would have been great to go out in a blaze of glory on the battlefield. So thank you for joining me, and I hope that you enjoy your time here at Springfield Cemetery.